What's happening, you damn rugrats? My name is KotyTang. Let's just make one thing clear. I'm about to change 95% of the story. Things that may be rules or facts inside the game are more than likely not going to be facts inside of my rewrite. But if you prefer a certain aspect of Sonic Frontiers over mine, feel free to let me know. I like writing, so for me, this is just for fun. For this exercise, I'm going to limit myself to using much of what Sonic Frontiers has provided, just to keep it fair. So I'll use many of the themes and plot beats introduced in Frontiers. I'll attempt to incorporate as many concepts as I can as I try to stay within the parameters the game has set. So I keep the four main characters: Sonic, Tails, Amy, Knuckles. And my three villains: Eggman, Sage, and the End. As well as my extras, the Ancients. When I want to write, I don't first consider what I'm trying to accomplish when it comes to individual characters, but I do know there always has to be an actual story going on to keep things moving. Since we're using the writing tools that Frontiers has provided, we know that the narrative focuses around the origin of the Emeralds and the people that were first involved with them. In my selection of characters, I can see that I have two who have direct ties to the narrative, which are Sonic and Knuckles. So I would want most of the development to go toward at least one of those characters, while Amy and Tails would only get minor development as the supporting cast for this plot. Sonic Frontiers is a platformer with only 4 main characters and 1 direct plot, so to keep in line with that, I don't want things to be too complicated or too long. I don't want to bog the story down with multiple perspectives, so I would keep Sonic as the only player for the character to use, and show select scenes with other characters separately if needed. I want to keep things easy to follow, so ideally I would already want the major plot beats sorted out. After that, I can establish the center of the narrative, and I know that I can design my character's growth in tandem with the story to get the best results for both the plot and the characters. Thankfully, much of the setting was already completed for us by our friends at Sega, so we have a very good grasp on what we're looking for, and now I just have to piece it together and make the details in between all line up with each other. We know what we want to accomplish. The question now is, how do we accomplish these things in a satisfying way? So now that we've got a rough idea for our plot, our characters, and our themes, we're pretty much done with our storyboarding and we can now begin our story. Now we get to the bulk of the writing process, figuring out how to get from point A to point B, and then basically repeating that over and over again until all of our plot beats are checked. As we go through this story, I'm not going to give you every minute by minute detail, but I am going to lay out my changes and why I did them. I would have 2 important moments at the beginning that would establish the narrative and get the plot moving. I would start with Sonic, Amy, and Tails battling Eggman. I'd explore various ways to have the heroes be forcefully transported into cyberspace. This would be thanks to a device Eggman hooked up to one of the doorways in, and ensure that Eggman would be pulled in with them as a result. It would either happen from Sonic and friends almost getting to Eggman in time before he activates the device, or by causing a malfunction in the device itself. Since much of the story focuses on technology, I would incorporate computer logic in as many places as I can, starting with the unauthorized access being treated like a computer virus or a hacker. And that's where I would begin the cyber corruption on Sonic and everybody else. As they wouldn't be in the real world, they would all be in cyberspace and don't belong there. I would only change the ending of the Frontiers Prologue. When Knuckles uses the portal, Sage would still be there to greet him with the same Guardian scene behind her, but this would be where the Ancients are fighting Sage's forces, taking place after they had successfully taken out a much weaker Titan off screen when the Ancients had stormed a base, where they also successfully retrieved a Chaos Emerald. Okay, in my story, I wouldn't call an entire race of people something as generic as the Ancients, but just for clarity's sake, I'll keep calling them that. With the help of Knuckles and the Ancients' now more powerful chaos-infused technology, they defeat the remaining army that Sage had brought. Thanks to this action, Knuckles would be accepted into their home to meet an ancient named Supara. They could be a guy or a girl, it really doesn't matter. Supara is whatever the Ancients would call their leader. This would allow Knuckles to acquaint himself with the Ancients off screen, giving us a character we're already familiar with, and one that would recognize much of the structures he sees. This would enable Knuckles to do his own research and be able to relay this information to Sonic and friends as he understands it. This would also make Knuckles already transported to cyberspace by the time Sonic and friends get there, and just like them, he would not belong in cyberspace, rendering him name, Cyber Corrupted. Knuckles will remain there helping the Ancients until Sonic, Amy, and Tails arrive at the Ancient City that has been pulled into cyberspace. From there, I would have Knuckles detail what he had been told, such as things like how the Chaos Emeralds power the Ancients' technology, what the Ancients' goals are, how the end blew up their planet, and so on. Knuckles would join Sonic's party and the cast would be accepted thanks to Knuckles gaining the Ancients' trust already. Okay, so right off the bat, I have made several major changes to the story. I introduced a character named Supara that's based off the Ancient who piloted the Supreme Titan in Sonic Frontiers. The other pilots are not in cyberspace, and I would pretty much confirm that they died before getting to Starfall Islands from the End's attack. I made everybody experience cyber corruption. This immediately sets every character on a path to a common goal. In doing this, it doesn't put one character over the other in terms of usefulness. Everybody has to contribute now. The story also no longer takes place in the real world, and instead it takes place entirely in a fully simulated cyberspace version of the Starfall Islands. Cyberspace could have been a much more interesting place than a bunch of data that can be uploaded to the minds of people and some levels that Sonic runs through. Instead, I've made this digital version of Starfall Islands a culmination of things made from the neural data uploaded into it. It's a world that crafts its own reality where information is stored and constantly updated in a digital sense, even giving it data that creates replicas of people, objects, and anything that has been uploaded to this space of neural technology. For my idea of cyberspace, I would have utilized the fact that cyberspace holds the memories of the Ancients, and I would have placed everyone in a corrupted moment of fabricated time. One that was influenced and reshaped by the memories of the Ancients from before and after they arrived on Starfall Islands, mixing the islands and their home planet that was blown up at the time. I would say it's a sort of timeline convergence between the two. So essentially, I've made cyberspace a melting pot of corruption set in a fictional merged timeline that has resulted in a stagnated war due to the Ancients having Starfall Island tech as well as their original world's tech. Anything that enters cyberspace will become a part of its reality, and the codes that come along with them can be modified by those powerful enough to understand it, and those that can access the proper technology. It's a subconscious area that is as real as anywhere else, and your actual person can be connected to it, but it's all on a server that is self-sustaining. If we're gonna do advanced alien tech, I say let's take it all the way. An entire library of information accessible by the entire race that can simulate moments in history to view or participate in, and is also a tangible, evolving world, is as ridiculously advanced as it gets. I would want the level design concepts to focus on being influenced by the memories of the people who do belong in that moment of time, such as the Ancients and the End, as well as those that don't belong in that moment in time, which would be Sonic, his friends, and Dr. Eggman. That way, the levels would have new locations with new enemy types, but also utilize cyber-corrupted enemies and obstacles from the cast past, showing a convergence of their minds with cyberspace. I'd easily have room for plenty of side objectives and many individual character quests, but I'm only going to talk about two that I feel would be absolutely necessary to make. I would incorporate a side objective through anomalies that can be discovered by the player exploring different zones of each island. These anomalies would hold hyper-corrupted levels designed to provide a challenging experience. The player would be rewarded with a storybook type narrative, just like those seen in the game. These scenes would follow the story of an Ancient that has survived the attack of the End on Starfall Island. This would allow the player to discover further lore that would hold secrets to the events that took place after Starfall Island met its end. These would play after each corrupted level you complete until the story is fully realized. It could also be used to access other forgotten files or in-game rewards. I'll go more into detail on what this story tells later on in this video, but for now, we can actually begin the story. Sonic, Tails, and Amy awake on Starfall Islands together without Eggman. After playing for a bit, going through a tutorial or something, the player will eventually discover a city that would belong to the Ancients. After talking to the citizens, some of the Ancients would realize that Sonic and his friends have corruption lingering on them. The citizens warn the heroes that, if left untreated, over time they will begin to lose all of their memories as their brains are deleted, and they will eventually be deleted from existence in cyberspace, as well as their physical bodies either going brain dead or comatose in the real world if they don't clear it. With every moment that they spend in cyberspace, the more the corruption grows. Interacting with other corrupted things can even make the corruption even worse. Tails asks if there's a way to clear it, and they would be directed to the Ancients' data labs to see if the Ancients' leader knows a way. From there, they would reunite with Knuckles, getting the cast together as quickly as possible. They would also be introduced to the scientists of the Ancients, as well as an Ancient that they call their leader, a person known as Supara. My next major change would be when it comes to Sage. I would have Sage the main villain, full stop. Whether or not I want her to be created by Eggman would have been determined by at least 3 different avenues that I would have explored before coming to my final conclusion. The antagonist is one of the most important roles in your story. I would make Sage a sort of antivirus program created to watch over cyberspace. She was created by the Ancients to protect and organize the files of cyberspace so that they remain accurate and untouched. Sage's duties had always been to try and keep cyberspace from being cyber-corrupted, whether through deleting files, resetting data, rewriting code, working on people's memories, or attempting to stop anomalies from popping up that don't belong. Sonic, his friends, and Eggman would be some of those anomalies. Sage has already been corrupted for years by the time the heroes started arriving in cyberspace. In that time span, Sage has turned the Titans onto the Ancients, stolen the Chaos Emeralds, and is using them to enhance the power of her army. She is also actively using her army of robots to launch attacks against the Ancients who go out into the fields. That's where the Ancients use their own technology to try and combat Sage's forces as they travel throughout Starfall Islands, through tanks, ships, cannons, laser rifles, and so on. Supara would explain to Sonic and friends that they had an antivirus program that watched over everything in cyberspace, and they named the program Sage. Their antivirus program went haywire sometime during the first fight with the End, a being that forced them off their original planet, and they haven't been able to fix Sage since. Supara explains that they were able to design a super server to combat Sage from tampering with data. However, without the Chaos Emeralds, it won't work at full capacity. But they've at least been able to keep Sage and her forces out of the city, which has saved them from being affected by Sage's ability to rewrite code. The Ancients have also been able to monitor if Sage travels to the fields with their disruptor pylons, which activate an automatic defense system at her. The Ancients would have successfully destroyed Sage's first Titan at this point, which would have been seen in the prologue with Knuckles. Supara would tell the cast that their Chaos Emeralds were taken by Sage, and she is trying to use them to power the Titans, to overwrite their code and take control of them. The Ancients would currently have 1 Chaos Emerald, and for each Chaos Emerald the player gets, the more powerful the Ancients' technology would become. The heroes would be presented with this information, and the player could discover much more through citizens and Knuckles himself. Sonic and friends would accept to assist the Ancients in fighting off Sage's army, which would involve the Titans and the other robots seen in the game. Tails remembers that the Ancients said that they were cyber-corrupted, to which Supara says that their cyber-corruption is a problem, and they'll have to override Sage's safe lock codes, which they can do through their super server. This would allow Sonic and friends to bypass security and upload themselves into cyberspace. The catch being that even after their minds are fully uploaded, they'll still have to overwrite the corruption data by downloading all of their minds data to their digital selves. And the super server can only upload so much of them at a time with only 1 emerald. Supara tells Sonic and friends that it would take 7 emeralds to completely bypass all of cyberspace's security checks and upload their minds successfully. This would set the player right in the center of the narrative. The player is brought to a place where they can learn the most information either through cutscenes, exploring around, reading, or speaking to their friends and the Ancients. It also establishes a goal for the player to achieve, which is to take the Chaos Emeralds and protect the people from being attacked by an army of smaller and larger robots that abuse the Chaos Emerald's energy. Something Sonic and friends can immediately relate to thanks to Dr. Eggman's empire. There's an immediate incentive for Sonic to gather these Chaos Emeralds, and there's a serious stake at hand that the heroes need to deal with quickly with the oncoming cyber corruption. Tails offers to help the Ancients by locating the emeralds since he understands their wavelengths. Supara would deny his offer, saying they have already tracked them with their own devices, and they don't trust an outsider to mess with their technology anyway. Instead, Supara directs them to the 7 bases that Sage has set up. These bases are used to create the robots that attack the Ancients. These bases are extremely corrupted areas that can take the cast through different timelines, areas of the island, and merge zones such as Green Hill mixing assets from Speed Highway, mixing assets from a city on the Ancients' original planet, and so on. It isn't truly the inside of a base in the literal sense, as once the cast enters, it's basically another plane of existence. As the first Chaos Emerald would already be secured by the Ancients, I would only have 6 trials referred to as Sage's bases. The first 3 trials would end with harder versions of the field bosses that are seen in the open zones, and the last 3 trials would end with the Titans, giving you 6 emeralds to add to the one that the Ancients start with, gaining a total of 7 Chaos Emeralds. Also, giving the player a sense of progression as each trial would be harder, with harder challenges and bosses. The Ancients would also clearly be getting more powerful with their technology through each emerald gained, as well as Sage's army getting more aggressive as the game goes on. Supara would explain that these bosses aren't holding the emeralds on their bodies, but instead draining their powers into themselves, meaning that by the time Sonic and friends arrive at these bases, they may be able to take the emerald, but won't gain the full effect since the Titans would have drained much of their energies. This would mean that Sonic would have no choice but to defeat the Titans to regain the stolen Chaos energy. I don't think it's a good idea to have Sonic fighting the Titans as Super Sonic. I understand that it gives a power scale that implies that Sonic is clearly outmatched without the emeralds, but the problem is that as Super Sonic, there's nothing that can stop him, so he's actually brokenly overpowered now. In my story, due to Sonic being corrupted, he's actually incapable of turning supersonic, and I'll get to the remedy for that when I talk about the end. Instead, I would have Sonic be himself, but incorporate QuickTime events just as the game has, although these would involve Amy, Tails, Knuckles, and the Ancients all battling the bosses alongside Sonic, resulting in different timed events throughout each fight. Before and after each trial, I would have a secondary storyline going on that plays alongside the main plot. The secondary story would show up as a marker on the map while exploring open zones. The first plot takes place before the first trial. The player would be called over by Knuckles just before heading into the open zone. Knuckles tells Sonic about some ruins that he found around the city. He invites Sonic to go see them and wonders if he notices anything. Sonic brings up that Tails would be better at this kind of stuff, but Knuckles says that Tails is too caught up trying to look at all the Ancients' technology. The ruins end up heavily resembling Sky Sanctuary. Knuckles and Sonic find murals depicting echidnas. After seeing these ruins, Knuckles suspects that the reason the Ancients accepted him so readily might be because they thought he knew a secret about the Chaos Emeralds. Because he's thinking this, Knuckles now refuses to give the Ancients any information. He reasons that letting the Ancients abuse the Chaos Emeralds as they are should be kind enough of him to do. Sonic doubts that the Ancients have learned anything Knuckles doesn't already know, considering Knuckles doesn't even know much himself. A pair of Sentry Guardians appear around the ruins and attack Sonic and Knuckles. After defeating the enemies, Knuckles feels it would be best to get back to the city before the Ancients get suspicious. He mentions that he wants to come back and search again, as the ruins might actually give him a chance to learn more about the echidna, but for now, he wants to see what Supara would do with their next Chaos Emerald. After that, the player would be directed to their first base. In order to get through the gate, the Ancients have developed massive devices that release corruption. Using these devices, they break through each base's door and are able to get inside momentarily before the server replaces the code of the door. During the first trial, Knuckles will reveal that he can't feel the Chaos Emeralds at all. He figured it might just be the technology that the Ancients use blocking their signals, but even while going through Sage's base, he couldn't even tell an emerald was nearby. Much more, he can't feel the Master Emerald, if there even is one in cyberspace. Tails will hypothesize that not feeling the emerald's energies may have something to do with cyberspace seeing them as viruses. Tails also concludes that if Knuckles can't feel the emeralds, then Sonic likely won't be able to use them to go supersonic. Knuckles will ask the party if they trust the Ancients. He feels uncomfortable letting people he doesn't know use the emeralds like Eggman would, even talking about how strange it was that the ruins of Echidna were nearby without any Echidna in sight. Amy brings up that whatever cyberspace is, the Chaos Emeralds here are probably not the same as the ones back in the real world, so it's probably harmless. Sonic adds on that the Ancients don't seem interested in doing anything close to what Eggman does. After defeating the first trial's boss, Sonic will go to take the Chaos Emerald, which is connected to a large shrine. Upon falling into his hands, it immediately reacts negatively to Sonic's touch and he drops it. Supara comes and picks up the emerald and says that the Chaos Emeralds are directly connected to cyberspace's server and their corruption denies the emeralds from recognizing their code, which resulted in the Chaos Emerald wanting to delete Sonic. Supara explains that the emerald likely just sped up Sonic's corruption, evident by the fact that Sonic's entire arm turned red while he was holding the emerald. After the first trial is complete, Sonic and friends would have proven themselves as valuable assets to the Ancients' army. When Sonic arrives back at the city, the cyber corruption starts to hit him hard. The voice of a little girl enters his mind, telling Sonic that he needs to leave while he still can. For a moment, Sonic forgets what he had just done in the trial, but he brushes it off and ignores the voice. Knuckles notices something is wrong and asks if Sonic is okay. okay. Sonic, for a second, forgets who Knuckles is, but he's able to recognize him after a moment passes. Sonic requests that Knuckles not tell the others so that they don't worry. Knuckles agrees, but reminds Sonic that taking the emerald made his corruption worse than it should be. Sonic laughs it off, saying he'll be fine. The Ancients then use their now 2 Chaos Emeralds to power their super server and start to upload as much as they can of Sonic and friends to cyberspace through a device that connects to their minds one at a time. Supara explains that the device requires only one person in the data room at a time, so that it won't accidentally try to merge their codes together. After Sonic and friends have gone through their first neural upload, I would present the Koko. These things inside the bodies of the Ancients are actually another form of antivirus used to combat Sage's hacks while outside of the city, so that she can't access their neural data and attempt to write them out of cyberspace. I'd make the origin of the Kokos something cheesy, like them being based on a doll one of the Ancients' children had or something. These Koko would be gifted to Sonic and his friends upon completing the first trial. The Koko naturally absorbs all of its host cyber data. As the player uploads more of themselves to cyberspace and levels up Sonic, the Koko's appearance would begin to alter to match Sonic and friends, just as they do for the Ancients in the game. I figured that Sonic and friends would just wear the Kokos around their person like a backpack or something. From here, I'd introduce my second necessary side objective. One of the Ancients would tell Sonic that the Koko remain even after their masters are deleted from cyberspace. They would task Sonic and friends to collect as many of the Koko as they can, whether through exploring open zones or finding them trapped in cyberspace levels. In return, the Ancients will be able to mix what remains of the Koko's data with Sonic's into the super server, giving him power-ups just as they do in Sonic Frontiers. Different types of Koko would give different power-ups like the 4 seen in games through rings, speed, health, and defense. Each time the player completes a trial, the cyber corruption would start to grow. I would make cyber corruption a double-edged sword. Sonic and friends will be able to attach themselves to data and corrupt it. I would have made the abilities used in the games actually be corruption being flung at the enemies, which would give the skill tree a direct narrative connection. As the player defeats enemies, explores, and completes quests, Sonic will learn to manipulate his corruption to help him out. After the first trial, Sonic would unlock the ability to Psych Loop, and the player would advance from that over time. Amy will be talking to Tails and Sonic comes over. Amy explains that Tails is pretty upset that the Ancients wouldn't let him help out. Tails says that he's used to being able to show off his inventions, so most people just already know that he's good at inventing. Having nothing in cyberspace to show for himself, he requests Sonic go with him and Amy to an abandoned military camp to collect different parts of Guardians, so that he can try to decipher cyberspace's code and prove his worth to the Ancients. After the player defeats the enemies at the camp, Tails realizes that everything inside cyberspace can be designed as realistically as it can be in real life, and the code is only a secondary option. Finding out this information, Tails comes up with several ideas that the Ancients might be able to use, and begins talking to himself about all the different things he might be able to create. Amy thanks Sonic for helping out, as she knew he'd be able to cheer up Tails. Sonic isn't worried about whether Tails will figure out how to help the Ancients, he's more concerned that Tails is going to start feeling useless. Amy tells Sonic that that's what he's here for, to lift up his best friend when he gets afraid or discouraged, noting that Tails really looks up to him, so as long as Sonic believes in him, she's sure that Tails will keep going. The second trial begins with the cast noticing corrupted remnants of Eggman's empire all over the place, with many engaged in combat with the Guardians in the background as the player runs through the level. After getting through the base, it will be revealed that Eggman has been able to mobilize a small army out of what's in cyberspace. Eggman will describe Sage as an annoying flying brat that kept calling him a potential threat. He attempted to make a deal with her, but Sage denied all negotiations with him, and he's been battling against her ever since. Thanks to Eggman's machines, he was able to escape and stumbled upon one of Sage's bases. With his army of corrupted machines, he broke down the door, leading him to a Chaos Emerald, and then Sonic showed up. Sonic will joke about Eggman not being the only one stealing Chaos Emeralds this time. Eggman will refuse to allow Sonic to get to the Emerald before him and challenges him to a battle. A simple battle, like the one seen in Sonic Unleashed with the Egg Dragoon, only to have the battle interrupted by the actual boss of the trial. After defeating the real boss, Eggman snatches the Emerald. It reacts to Eggman enough for him to drop it, and Sonic catches the Emerald as it falls. Once again, his body also reacts negatively. Tails reminds Sonic that he shouldn't be touching the Emeralds. Sonic acknowledges this, and he tosses the Emerald to one of the Ancients. Eggman is immediately put off by this, asking what just happened to him. Tails explains to Eggman that the emeralds aren't able to be touched by people who are suffering from cyber corruption. Eggman questions what cyber corruption even is. Supara is able to point out that Eggman has it lingering on him already. Eggman says he's already figured out that something was wrong with him, but thanks to his hundreds of creations that seem to have been pulled in with him, he was able to moderately decipher cyberspace's code, enough to find a way to slow down whatever sickness was affecting him. Supara is impressed to hear that Eggman is the sole creator of so many things, even those that can adapt to decipher codes for him. The ancients following Supara begin to praise Eggman's ability to combat the Guardians effectively. Eggman graciously accepts the praise, eventually realizing that he's talking to the ancients, and his demeanor changes. He explains that he too has seen the potential of the Chaos Emeralds and has incorporated the designs into some of his machines. While the ancients continue to appreciate Eggman's designs, Knuckles attempts to step in and tell Supara that Eggman isn't a good guy, but Sonic stops Knuckles from talking. He winks at him and whispers for his friends to join in on the praise Eggman is being given, believing that the ancients are actually trying to manipulate him. Sonic and Amy join the ancients in congratulating Eggman for the things he's made over the years, but Knuckles and Tails don't join in, giving uncertain looks at each other instead. Supara is able to convince Eggman to join them, saying that they could assist him in getting away from Sage, stating that Eggman's army of robots will eventually be deleted due to cyber corruption. Supara notes that although they can't fix his army, they can clear him of cyber corruption. Eggman agrees, but under one condition, that they reveal all of their secrets to the Chaos Emeralds, to which Supara agrees, so long as Eggman can assist them with bringing one of their Titans back to life. Eggman sweetens the deal by promising to make the Titan even better before if the ancients can tell him something that he doesn't know about the Chaos Emeralds. Knuckles is absolutely livid about the idea but stays silent. Tails also appears saddened by this decision to accept Eggman. With Eggman on board, everyone returns to the city. The team expresses their concerns for Eggman gaining that type of information, but Sonic tells everybody not to worry, because they've always been able to stop Eggman, no matter how much of an edge he's had. After everyone separates, Sonic is once again called by the voice of a little girl. The voice tells Sonic that if he continues to pursue the Chaos Emeralds, she'll have no choice but to respond. The heroes make it to the super server and upload more of their data, only difference being that Eggman also joins in uploading himself. After they're finished, Eggman already thinks of several ways to make the upload process more efficient. Supara takes Eggman along with him to discuss their technology. Sonic jokes with his friends that Eggman finally found somebody who appreciates his obnoxious self. Amy remarks how weird it is that the ancients seem to have accepted Eggman so quickly, but said before that they didn't like outsiders messing with their technology. Knuckles angrily shouts out to the ancients before they leave with Eggman that Supara is making a big mistake inviting Eggman to the city. The ancients stare quietly at Knuckles while Eggman begins chuckling. This prompts Knuckles to storm off and leave the city, with Amy going after him. Tails tells Sonic that he would chase after Knuckles, but he thinks he just had a breakthrough invention that Supara will like, and can't let Eggman get in the ancients' heads. Tails promises that if he hears anything weird from the ancients, he'll let everybody know. When Sonic catches up in the field, Knuckles is shouting about how angry he is that Supara is willing to give up everything they know about the emeralds to Eggman. Amy is attempting to calm Knuckles down, and then Sonic arrives. Sonic attempts to intervene, but it ends up angering Knuckles more, to the point that the banter gets too annoying, and Amy tells the two to quit. She suggests doing something to take their minds off Eggman moving in. Knuckles suggests that they start destroying every Guardian they see and any remnants of Eggman's army if they see some. Sonic suggests that the three of them make it a competition. First, it's just a simple game of how many robots they can beat, and after successfully participating, they regroup nearby and tally up their kills. The three realize that they've stumbled into some kind of old battlefield. There are broken spears everywhere, the ground is war-torn, there are skeletal remains of Echidna still clutching their shields and weapons, destroyed laser rifles, and even several downed battleships of the ancients crash into the various ruins. Knuckles is distraught at the sight, believing the ancients to have killed all of his people. Amy tries to console her friend, telling him that if the ancients wiped out the Echidna, then Tikal's tribe wouldn't have existed. Knuckles struggles to even believe her claim, as he sees the proof that his people and the ancients were in some kind of conflict against each other. He even thinks that the ancients may be using cyberspace to get revenge on the Echidna, and that's why they want the Chaos Emeralds. And he begins doubting that he should even be helping the ancients at all. Before Knuckles can get all of his thoughts out, they're attacked by a giant guardian, to which the three of them team up to take it down. After the fight, Sonic asks if Knuckles is feeling better. Knuckles says he definitely isn't, and says that if Supara is going to work with Eggman, he doesn't want to be a part of it. He's worried that Eggman might learn stuff about himself that even he doesn't know. Sonic replies that Eggman learning secrets of the emeralds and Echidna will just get him a history lesson, so what's the big deal? Knuckles is certain that the ancients know something about the Echidna and are purposely not telling him. Sonic suggests that maybe Knuckles should bring it up himself then. Amy attempts to chime in, saying that Knuckles shouldn't act off something he had only just seen. There must be a reason for the Echidna being here. Sonic takes the idea even further and suggests that it might have been the Echidna that stole the emeralds from the ancients in the first place. This angers Knuckles and he storms off back to the city alone. Sonic gets a call from Supara telling him to go and check on one of the cyber disruptor pylons. Upon heading to the coordinates, Eggman and Tails are arguing about the coding for the ancients' technology. Tails suggests that Eggman is planning to use the code to recreate his own cyberspace, and that's why Eggman refuses to teach him. Sonic says that if they're all going to work together, then they're gonna have to trust one another. Eggman half-heartedly agrees with Sonic and tells him that the pylon needs to be fixed, telling Sonic that he'll need to go inside of a portal attached to it. To which Tails says that Eggman needs to be working on the code while Sonic is in there, and he doesn't trust him with it. Eggman eventually concedes, annoyed that the two are ganging up on him, and tells Tails that he's only going to explain the coding once, so he'd best pay attention. Sonic enters the portal and it leads to a cyberspace level with resemblance to various bases Eggman has had through the years. Tails blames Eggman's corrupted army for the pylon resetting, which makes up much of the banter throughout the level. After the level completes, the pylon is activated again, keeping Sage away from the open zones. The third trial opens up with Tails expressing to Sonic how it doesn't seem fair that the ancients liked Eggman so fast. Tails feels like he's not as helpful as he could be, because Eggman is more efficiently equipped here. Sonic tells Tails to not worry about it, because everybody in real life already knows he's a great inventor. Tails doesn't accept the sentiment, walking away dissatisfied, with Sonic making a concerned face, and the trial continues. Upon defeating the boss, Sage arrives. She mentions that she's warned Sonic, and now he's forced her hand. Knuckles steps in and demands answers from her, asking if she somehow pulled the Echidna into cyberspace, and asking if she killed them in here. Sage blankly stares at Knuckles for a moment before speaking, first saying his full name and stating that he has no idea who he's speaking to. Knuckles angrily protests and then jumps at Sage to attack her, but Sage knocks him back and then summons the Giganto Titan. The Titan proves too powerful for the heroes to fight off without a plan, so they begin to retreat, but not before Sonic nabs the Chaos Emerald. Sonic and friends make it out of the base and back to the city, but Sonic holding the emerald has caused seemingly irreparable damage. Sonic has completely forgotten who Tails and Knuckles even are. At the moment, only Amy is safe in Sonic's memory. On top of this, the rest of Sonic's friends begin to forget things that they should easily remember, showing that the corruption is starting to finally affect them as well. Upon seeing Eggman, Sonic immediately goes into attack mode, now referring to Eggman as Robotnik again. Knuckles, Tails, and Amy stop Sonic from being reckless and try to explain that he's lost his memory and that Eggman is on their side. Kind of. Eggman suggests the Titan that attacked them could be valuable to recreating the Ancient's own Titan, and he can salvage its parts for reuse. Hearing that Eggman is in fact repairing the Ancient's Titan, Knuckles demands to know what the Ancients told him, but Eggman refuses to say. Supara chimes in and says that Knuckles has nothing to worry about, as he is their ally just as much as Eggman is. Knuckles walks away from the group to be alone. Tails asks Supara why Sage hasn't deleted the Titan that's been put out of commission. Supara says that it may have something to do with the Titan's original code, in line with the Chaos Emeralds preventing Sage from deleting it. Once again, the Ancients go to upload the cast mine into the Super Server. Amy wonders if the corruption will affect how Sonic's mind is uploaded, to which Supara claims that since Sonic is still in cyberspace, that means his code is still there too, but it's locked. Thanks to the Chaos Emerald's connection to the server, any corrupted code will be repaired by them. While exploring the open zone, Sonic runs into Knuckles and Tails. Tails calls Sonic over, and Knuckles becomes slightly annoyed, saying Sonic doesn't even remember them. He's not gonna be able to help. Tails suggests that maybe he can though. Knuckles asks what he means, and Tails tells Sonic to break through the ruins. Knuckles rejects the idea, saying that he's not breaking the Echidna ruins. Doing that would destroy long gone history. Tails insists that the ruins aren't actually real, so it'll be fine, and it'll probably repair itself. Maybe. Before Knuckles can finish protesting, Sonic breaks through. This leaves a giant opening in the wall that destroys both Echidna statues, but opens up a portal. After Knuckles is done freaking out about his ruins being desecrated, the three agree to jump inside, leading the player to a unique cyberspace level inspired by Echidna ruins and Angel Island. After completing the level, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles discover a village resembling ruins found on Angel Island, but much more complete. There are various remnants of a thriving echidna tribe all around, from weapons, to homes, to memorabilia. Knuckles brings up several questions. What is a whole echidna village doing here? Where are the people? Did the echidna work with the ancients? What if the ancients stole the Master Emerald somehow? Unable to find any proper answers, the three head back to think on what they found. Eggman invites Sonic out to the open zone because he wants to test something. Amy doesn't like the fact that Eggman is harassing Sonic and invites herself along. After getting to one of the open zones, Eggman calls upon his corrupted army and explains that he wants to see if the corruption is really as bad as the ancients say. He tells Sonic and Amy that he wants them to fight his robots, to which Amy and Sonic both say that he's just trying to get rid of them. Eggman says that if he wanted to do that, he would have done it while Sonic was working on the disruptor pylon. What he's testing is purely for the sake of finding out if the ancients are lying to him. After defeating the Badniks, it's clear to Eggman that the corruption has indeed hindered his robots, and they'll be deleted from cyberspace soon. Amy questions if Eggman plans on using his own version of cyber corruption on them at some point, to which Eggman just says, "I guess you have to find out someday," and then he flies away. With the corrupted Sonic in tow, the heroes begin to shove off and face the fourth trial. Eggman tasks Tails with finding specific pieces on the Titan, hoping to be able to salvage any usable tech that they can. Tails gets upset by being ordered around by Eggman, but considers taking in the information about the Titans for himself as well. Knuckles and Tails talk while Sonic and Amy continue ahead. Knuckles relays his feelings about the ancients joining up with Dr. Eggman to Tails, and he agrees. Whether Supara understands that Eggman is dangerous or not, Eggman will undoubtedly try and take over the ancients' technology for himself. After reaching the boss, the Giganto Titan will be directly hooked up to the Chaos Emerald Shrine, awakening upon Sonic and friends entering the room. Sage will appear once more and demand that the heroes stop helping the ancients steal her Chaos Emeralds. She states that they're meddling in things they have no place in. Knuckles shouts, "What does she mean, her emeralds?" Sonic's dialogue with Sage switches between him thinking Sage is Robotnik to remembering that she's an antivirus. Finally, jumping toward her to attack, where the Titan meets Sonic to protect Sage. Sonic flips off the Giganto's hand and the fight is on as Sage disappears. Sonic, his friends, and the Ancients are able to topple and defeat the Titan thanks to the Ancients' ever-growing technology with the Chaos Emeralds. Knuckles chooses to take the base's Chaos Emerald himself this time, believing that his connection should prevent him from being corrupted. However, the same thing happens to him and the Emerald attempts to overtake his arm, confirming that nobody is safe touching the Chaos Emeralds. However, Knuckles seems preoccupied by something after that interaction, as he incoherently mutters to himself. Supara thanks Knuckles as they take the 5th Emerald into their possession. The Ancients and Tails break apart pieces of the Titans, revealing various technologies, sensors, and the like. Supara tells Tails that the majority of the Titan's technology will lie in the nape of its neck. They mount up the parts for the Titan onto their vehicles and take them back to the ancient city. Eggman invites Sonic to a ride along with him. Sonic displays this lack of awareness, and Eggman has to reintroduce himself as Dr. Robotnik. He tells Sonic that he needs his help with obtaining a device that he's implanted into cyberspace. He explains that the device will assist the Ancients. Sonic agrees to help Eggman, and he leads him to a portal inside of a volcano on a destroyed Egg Fleet ship. Eggman tasks Sonic with heading inside and retrieving the device. The level is designed after the Egg Fleet from Sonic Heroes, however it's covered with cyber corruption. Eggman directs Sonic as the player runs through the level. Upon completion, the player retrieves the same device Eggman used to enter cyberspace, unknown to Sonic, who doesn't remember the majority of what's going on. Eggman thanks Sonic for a job well done and promptly leaves. Using the pieces of the Titan, Tails is able to come up with a firewall type device that is designed to prevent Sage from even knowing where Sonic and friends are at, and disrupt enemies into attacking each other. The Ancients agreed to let Tails test out his new device. Tails and Eggman stay back in the city to monitor the progress, while the player will leave the city with Amy and is tasked with testing the firewall's blocking capabilities on some of the Guardians outside. The device proves to work quite well, but the Ancients want to test the range of the device as well. They send Sonic and Amy into a crevice created by a larger Titan. The device proves to temporarily block it from sensing them, and Sonic and Amy are able to weaken it before taking it down. Supara congratulates Tails, suggesting that he should use it inside of one of Sage's bases so that she won't know they're inside. Once the heroes again upload themselves into the super server, the 5th trial begins. Sonic continues having a harder time and forgets much of what they're doing, still only remembering Amy. Amy reminds Sonic of what's been happening and that he's losing his memory. Amy notices that Knuckles has also gotten worse. Knuckles seems lost and distant from everybody else. He starts to leave, and when Tails asks him where he's going, Knuckles just says that he has to go back to his island. Tails tells Amy to keep a close eye on Sonic since she seems to be the only one that he remembers, and she seems to be able to bring him back to reality, at least enough to keep him pushing through cyberspace. Tails says he's certain that Knuckles went back to the Echidna ruins and they'll have to check in with him later. As they go to break down the 5th base's door, Supara takes note that Knuckles is not around, but they aren't worried about him not coming along since they have 5 emeralds now. Tails stays back with Eggman to monitor Sonic and Amy's descent inside Sage's base. The 5th trial begins with only Sonic and Amy. As the two are running through the level, they notice a wave of Eggman robots joining the side of the Guardians as well. Tails' device ends up malfunctioning at the beginning of the 2nd level, alerting all the robots in the area that Sonic, Amy, and the Ancients have arrived. The base is crawling with enemies, and it puts everybody in a very tough spot, being in the center of it all. Sage begins following alongside Sonic and Amy as they travel through the level, spawning obstacles and enemies, and occasionally trying to attack them outright, while berating them throughout. At one point even claiming that she knows everything about Sonic and Amy, even things in their past that they don't even remember themselves. Thanks to these revelations that Sage has been exploring, she is certain that Sonic and his friends will perish in cyberspace. After arriving at the boss, the Wyvern Titan, Sage will give one final warning, telling the two that their friends aren't safe with the Ancients. The Titan dislodges itself from the Emerald Shrine and attacks Sonic, Amy, and the Ancients. After defeating the Titan, Amy grabs the Emerald, passing it to the Ancients. They take apart pieces of the Titan and return to base. Upon arriving, the cyber corruption has finally begun to affect Amy. She asks Sonic what friend Sage was talking about, but Sonic can't seem to recall either. Tails hurries to meet with Sonic and Amy to apologize for his device malfunctioning, but forgets what else he was going to tell them. Sonic and Amy ask if Tails need any help, to which Tails says he's not sure, but he definitely feels like he was supposed to tell Sonic something. Eggman tells Sonic and friends that Knuckles has gone AWOL, and he was just on his way to find out about this Master Emerald that Supara says Knuckles went to go find, with Eggman seeming surprised to hear about an 8th, more powerful emerald existing. Amy exclaims to Sonic and Tails that she completely forgot that they were collecting Chaos Emeralds, urging Sonic that they have one more base to go through. Sonic doesn't understand why she wants him to leave the city so badly, but eventually he agrees, thanks to Amy reminding him that everybody is losing their memories and that's how they can get them back. Supara reminds Sonic and friends to connect themselves to the super server so that they can be uploaded. After the upload, Tails says that he remembers what he was going to say earlier thanks to Eggman, and invites Sonic and Amy back to the Echidna ruins, assuming that Knuckles went missing because he went back there. Upon arriving at the ruins, it's clear that somebody has been there, as the whole place has been turned out. Eventually, Sonic and Tails find a secret passageway that's been opened. After heading in, it's revealed that a Master Emerald Shrine exists hidden away. Tails immediately assumes that Sage has the Master Emerald. He believes that even if they get all 7 emeralds, Sage may be able to shut them down just like Knuckles can. Amy comes back to the two with a staff that the Echidna chiefs use to manipulate the Master Emerald. Tails realizes that that's what he needs for his firewall device. Whatever the staff is made of, he plans to make a device to track not just Chaos Emeralds, but potentially the Master Emerald. Tails tells Sonic and Amy to cover for him if Supara asks, as he's got an idea that might find Knuckles, and if there is a Master Emerald, maybe it can help out with the corruption. The final trial starts once again with Sonic and Amy heading into the corrupted cyberspace. This time is much different. Sage, at her wit's end at combating Sonic, completely shifts the entire reality that they run on. Cyber corruption is rampant throughout these levels, with entire areas imploding on themselves as Sonic and Amy are thrown from one reality to the next. The Ancients are completely unable to keep up and are cut off from Sonic and Amy. Upon reaching the final area, Sage is already there waiting for Sonic and Amy's arrival. She says that she doesn't blame the two for what they're doing, however the final emerald cannot leave her possession at any cost. Sonic and Amy must battle the final Titan, the Knight, and Sage alone. Unable to actually defeat the Titan, Amy tells Sonic to just steal the emerald, and he and Amy begin running away, tossing the emerald between each other to not let it corrupt them too much. This angers Sage to the point that she begins deleting the base from cyberspace, initiating a sequence where the player goes through a level trying to avoid the Titan, complete the level fast enough to maintain cyber corruption, all while the level is deleting itself behind them. After completion, Sage deletes the base. Amy and Sonic are able to get away in time to the open fields of Starfall Islands. The Knight materializes in front of them, and the Ancients are able to assist Sonic and Amy as they rush back to the city. The Titan infiltrates the city, causing wreckage and destruction all over. The Ancients' defenses prove no match for the rampaging Titan. Upon Sonic and Amy reaching the lab, the Ancients launch their own Titan to combat Sage's. The Ancients' new and improved Titan, the Supreme, recreated by Eggman and powered by 6 Chaos Emeralds, is able to overpower the Knight into retreating. The Supreme remains at the gate of the city, and Supara comes out of the Titan to greet Amy and Sonic. Sonic is nearly collapsing at the amount of corruption he's acquired from the stunt him and Amy just pulled. Amy apologizes to Supara, saying they weren't able to get the full effect of the emerald out of the Titan. Supara says that the server should still work just the same with the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Amy gets a tad suspicious of this, remembering that the reason that they always had to defeat the Titans was to gain the full effect of the emerald for the server. Supara ignores Amy's questions and urges them to upload themselves to the server so that they can download themselves to cyberspace and stop the corruption. As Sonic clearly doesn't have much time, Sonic agrees. Being the final part of the game, it would be up to the player to progress the story or stop here and go through whatever quests are left. Proceeding would have Sonic go into the super server room and begin the final upload. After a few moments, the server begins exploding and Sage appears inside of the building. Supara demands to know how she got there. Sage responds that the Chaos Emeralds are a part of her, so as long as one still remains linked to her, she can use it to her advantage. Seeing the super server destroyed leaves Sonic with no chance to cure his cyber corruption. Sage steals Sonic, teleporting them both to an area underneath the city in front of a giant locked gate. Sage then collapses, exhausted, showing that she can barely even use her powers to fly anymore. Sonic asks her what's going on. Sage begins to say that Sonic is her last chance to set cyberspace right, wanting to use a power that he can unlock. Sonic is confused and uncertain of the power she's talking about, as he thought Sage was trying to destroy him. Sage reveals that there is no super server. She tried to tell Sonic this when he first began attacking her bases, but every time she told him, Sonic kept forgetting, to the point where she got angry and had no choice but to throw the Titans at them. Sage continues, stating that the Ancients were not trying to save them, but rather they were stealing their knowledge and made them believe that Sage was just out to kill them. Add that with the cyber corruption that has gone completely untreated, there's no telling what thoughts are real and which aren't. Sage finally reveals that the only way Sonic and friends could truly be uploaded to the server is through the Master Emerald. Sage requests that Sonic releases his cyber corruption onto the door and all will be revealed. The door malfunctions and deletes itself to reveal an enormous mechanized altar, and in the very center, underneath the lab of the Ancients, the Master Emerald. Sage requests that Sonic carry her inside, saying that his friends are waiting for him. Sonic agrees and carries Sage to the Master Emerald. The door rematerializes behind him, and when Sonic arrives, Knuckles, Tails, and Eggman are waiting around the Emerald, with all 3 of them appearing to be heavily corrupted. Knuckles asks what Sonic is doing here, the corruption affecting him to the point that he's reverted back to before he even met Sonic. Sage reintroduces Sonic to Tails, Eggman, and Knuckles, telling him that they are his forgotten friends, and then she apologizes for fighting them. Knuckles realizes that this is who Sage told him Sonic was. He tells Sonic that they've apparently been completely tricked. Knuckles says that if Sonic's going to remember anything, it needs to be this. Sage will explain that she originally was a being who traveled through space with no purpose. Her powers were even unbelievable to her. She found the Ancients' planet and wanted to help their civilization grow as their people were dying. Throughout the years, she continued to assist them in learning and advancing their technology until there were too many advanced intellectuals on their planet. She began dividing her power into 7 jewels, each with a celestial amount of her own energy, so that each division of science could get their fair share of her power. The Ancients began abusing the jewels, wanting to use them to conquer other beings, and eventually, other planets. Sage created a remedy to their insanely growing technology, powered by remnants of her own power. She created an 8th jewel that would completely nullify the Chaos Emerald's ability to function. The Ancients found out about her doing this and turned on her, stealing the Master Emerald for themselves. This eventually forced her into completely annihilating the planet in hopes that she could remedy her mistake of saving the planet in the first place. She managed to take out a large sum of the Ancients, however, those that escaped attempted to go to the farthest reaches of space and begin life anew. But because the Ancients took the emeralds with them, Sage was able to track that signal, and after years of following it, she eventually found the Ancients. Sage reveals that the Ancients did not originally defeat her, but only trapped her in cyberspace through the super server that has been taking Sonic and his friends' memories. The body that Sage uses was originally a program that protected the Ancients, however, cyberspace was damaged in Sage's first attack of the Ancients' planet. Sage was able to take over the antivirus after being trapped in cyberspace and has been fighting the Ancients ever since. The Ancients that didn't escape the annihilation of the island died and their minds remained in cyberspace, while the rest successfully left. Sage notes that somebody was still accessing cyberspace even after the Ancients' supposed end, but they weren't acting inside of cyberspace, only recording their thoughts, which caused much overlap between modern day and past. Sonic asks how his friends got down here. Knuckles says that Sage talked to him after he grabbed one of the Chaos Emeralds. She was able to read into him being the guardian of the Master Emerald, and over time, she helped him navigate the labs to find where the Ancients may be hiding the emerald. The further down he got, the less connection Sage had with him, and she could only speak in short sentences to his mind. Knuckles explains that he almost became fully cyber-corrupted shortly after touching the Master Emerald. A while after that, Tails and Eggman came down with Tails' repurposed firewall device. Tails will say that after they found the Echidna staff, he immediately went to work incorporating it into his firewall device. Eggman ended up helping him fix the code, and a faint wavelength signal popped up. Following the signal led them deep underground. When they got to the vault door, they were able to hack into it through all the cyber corruption the two had gained. After they let the corruption spread long enough, the door deleted itself. Sage contacted Knuckles and told them all to stay put, so they've been waiting ever since. Sage explains that every time the vault opened, she retrieved a signal telling her where the Master Emerald was. Thanks to Sonic and Amy not being able to destroy the Night Titan, the Chaos Emerald stayed connected to her, and she was able to teleport to the Ancient's lab. By teleporting, it gave her a much better idea of where the Master Emerald signal pinged from. However, her own power was fading due to the Chaos Emeralds no longer being connected to her, and without the Master Emerald repowering her, she'd soon die. The building begins to quake as the two Titans are fighting above ground in the city. Sonic asks what's the next move for them. Sage will say that the Master Emerald is directly linked to her. The room was designed to completely block all access, and the Emerald can't escape the ancient super server without Sage's direct intervention, revealing that the Master Emerald controls the actual server of cyberspace. Sage tells the heroes that ironically, it's a good thing that their data has been uploaded to cyberspace through the ancient super server, because even though the code isn't attached to them, all of their memories are uploaded onto the server. Sage says she'll need to connect directly to the Master Emerald, and through her, she can try and find Sonic and Friends' code. If Sage can find it, the Emerald will be able to override the cyber corruption and hopefully save them in time. She warns him that the Master Emerald is going to respond violently to their cyber corruption regardless. Knuckles says it's not going to be a problem, as this is exactly what he's here for. Sage says it may take some time, and if the Titan falls, it might completely sever the final link she has to the Chaos Emeralds, and she won't be able to help Sonic. Sonic says he's not gonna let that happen. He'll distract the robot for as long as she needs, plus he'll have Sage's Titan on his side. Tails doesn't want Sonic to go without him, but Sonic tells him not to worry. If he can save his friends, he's going to do it. Sage grabs onto the Master Emerald, then Eggman, Knuckles, and Tails grab onto her. The pain is immediate even for Sage, but they know they can't stop yet. Sonic leaves to go fight the final Titan, knowing that he may not return due to his oncoming cyber corruption. After reaching the city, Sonic sees Supara piloting the Supreme Titan, battling against the Night Titan, and the first phase of the final fight begins. Supara welcomes Sonic to the battlefield, noting that he's still cyber-corrupted, but working through it after all. Supara explains that they've researched Sonic's memories and discovered that he's able to harness its energy to transform. Supara is now trying to replicate that superform into themselves, and is using the Supreme Titan as a way to conduct that power inside of them. Amy is seen inside of the Supreme trapped in a chamber connected to the Chaos Emeralds in an attempt to harness that super energy inside of her. The player's goal is to distract the Supreme Titan while Sage's Knight fends off the Ancients and looks for an opening to attack Supreme. After completing Phase 1, Knuckles, Tails, and Eggman have successfully fought through the pain caused by the Master Emerald, and have successfully downloaded their memories onto their person. The red corruption lingering on them transforms into a bright white and blue light before disappearing altogether. Knuckles immediately feels the presence of the emeralds, allowing them to once again be accessed by them, and Knuckles begins chanting. The Chaos Emeralds inside of the Supreme malfunction and cease to stop working, exploding from out of the Titan. The open hole in the Titan allows Amy to fall out with Sonic catching her. The corruption has almost completely overtaken her at this point. Sage is able to break through to Sonic's thoughts, telling him to collect the Chaos Emeralds as fast as he can. As Sonic does this, his body is becoming consumed in corruption. When he collects all 7, the emeralds swirl around him, finally breaking through as Sonic turns into a corrupted version of Super Sonic. Sage tells Sonic that the Chaos Emeralds are beginning to react positively to him thanks to the Master Emerald accepting his friend's memories of Sonic. However, she's still trying to access Sonic's code to regain his own memories back, but it will take some time. Sage thanks Sonic, noting that she's gained full control of the Chaos Emeralds once again after they were dislodged from Supreme. She's able to teleport Amy to safety where she can be cured of her corruption, leaving Sonic to fight along with the Night Titan. The cyber-corrupted Super Sonic turns to face the final Titan and the second phase begins. Sonic is uncertain about the power he was given, but he can feel his memories returning, and he adjusts to the powers he's using over time. Halfway through the fight, Super Sonic ends up corrupting the Supreme. The Supreme utilizes the corruption it just gained to defeat the Night Titan. Eggman flies in with an army of Guardians to assist Sonic, with Eggman saying that his intention was to take the Ancients' data, not the other way around. The third phase begins, a corrupted Super Sonic and Eggman versus Supreme. The fight ends up destroying much of the city and military tech as collateral damage. The third phase ends with the defeat of the Supreme Titan. However, Supara isn't finished yet. The Supreme Titan had successfully absorbed the power of the Chaos Emeralds into Supara. Supara's body merges with the Supreme Titan, turning them into a giant mechanized beast, and Supara takes off into the sky. The remnants of Sonic's corruption float off him into the wind, and he regains his memories. Sage speaks into his mind, saying that she's successfully linked him to the server. She's now beginning to rework Supara's code, but they're still dangerous and need to at least be stalled. Sonic excitedly chases after Supara, beginning the final phase above the now ruined city of the Ancients. The corruption flings off Supara's body, turning into asteroids of chaos energy, pelting onto the islands. After Super Sonic defeats them, Supara's body begins to plummet downward before dematerializing in a mass of corrupted data. Super Sonic lands down, presenting himself to the remaining citizens of the Ancients. Sage teleports herself and Sonic's friends beside him. The Ancients yield to the power of the celestial being that is embodied by Sonic. The group gathers later on, with Sage again apologizing for the turmoil that cyberspace has caused them. She explains that before she was able to see into the lives of Sonic and his friends, she assumed they were working out of evil, but by the time she was able to try and work with Sonic, it was too late and they were already being brainwashed. Knuckles says that the power of the Chaos Emeralds has always been abused when it falls into the wrong hands. What happened with the Ancients long ago is no fault of Sage's. Knuckles relays that he believes he understands himself better. Him guarding the Master Emerald isn't a curse, it's a responsibility. He was born to right the wrongs of everybody who has abused the Emeralds for their own gain. He believes that he wasn't supposed to know the history of the Emeralds so that he wouldn't be swayed one way or the other. He ends saying that he's satisfied with protecting his island and the Master Emerald. Sage says that even in cyberspace, the power of the Emeralds should not be underestimated. She does appreciate that Knuckles has remained faithful to protecting the Master Emerald from falling into the wrong hands, even if he has been fooled many times before. Sage's final request is for the heroes to destroy cyberspace. Its secrets must never get out, and if the server is put online again, it may not have Sonic and company there to put a stop to what's going on inside. Sonic asks Knuckles what he thinks. It's his decision after all. There is still a lot he can learn from the place and the Emerald's history. Knuckles, having learned everything he feels he can from Sage, agrees to find and destroy all gates from cyberspace on the outside, so that its history can never be viewed again. All of the hidden knowledge will remain with Knuckles as he destroys the very origins of what he would come to protect today. A secret that would ultimately die along with him from doing this. Sage smiles and opens a portal for Sonic and company to leave. Everyone awakens outside of cyberspace in the remnants of Eggman's lab after it had been destroyed from the malfunctioning device that was used to hack into cyberspace. Eggman jokes that he's mentally exhausted and suggests a temporary truce. Sonic and friends agree. As Sonic begins to walk away into the distance, Tails shouts for Sonic to wait for him. Sonic saying he can't leave without his best buddy, and the two run off into the distance. After the credits roll, Eggman reaches back to one of his bases. Eggman plugs in a device to his computer, and the voice of Sage comes out of it, asking where she is, before wondering if Eggman is her master. A grin crosses Eggman's face, and the player is returned to the title screen. If the player collects all of the secret files through the hidden cyber-corrupted levels, this is the full story that comes with it. Taking what little remained of their technology with them, after the devastation by the End on Starfall Island, the Ancients became sick from radiation let off by the End. As they left Starfall Island, eventually they would arrive on Angel Island. The Ancients used what they had left of their technology to create pedestals for the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds. The emeralds react to the shrine and in turn connects to the island, making it rise into the sky. The Ancients also hide the gateway to cyberspace, completely shutting it down and locking it, believing that the End would be freed from cyberspace if they destroyed it or kept the server running. This same door is what Knuckles would find in his prologue. Mix that with Eggman's hacking device, cyberspace was once again turned on, and the servers began running again after thousands of years being dormant. However, before this, the Ancient in the story was secretly accessing the gate themselves and recording this information. This Ancient constantly turning on cyberspace is actually what led to the Echidna ruins being seen by Knuckles. Unknown to the Ancients, Angel Island wasn't uninhabited. One of the Echidna tribes accepted the few Ancients left alive, impressed by their technology and the emeralds. Over time, the Ancients would share with the Echidna how their people lived and what the emeralds meant to them. The Echidna would also begin worshipping the emeralds themselves, impressed by how even life itself reacted to them. Eventually, the Echidna would get sick from the End's radiation coming off from the Ancients, and the Echidna would develop strange powers, giving them a connection to the Chaos Emeralds that would fall into their bloodline over the years. Eventually, the Echidna would begin using the emeralds for their own benefit, which the Ancients did not like, afraid of awakening the wrath of the End once more. The final broadcast would be a goodbye message from the storyteller. The Ancients were forced into hiding by the Echidna, and they could do nothing as the Echidna stole and abused the Chaos Emeralds, which would lead to several wars among the tribes of Angel Island, eventually leading to the event that took place during Tikal's lifetime. This would confirm the origin of the Chao and Chaos from Sonic Adventure 1, as well as explain how all the emeralds got to Angel Island and how the Echidna are connected to the emeralds. And with that, the final pieces of the story are complete. The story sounds longer than it actually would be. I had to explain the story moments in detail rather than it all just being presented as dialogue while the player is playing the game, or just in cutscenes. So if you got lost at any point, I can clarify whatever you got confused on. There would also have been other things for the player to do while playing the game as well, such as objectives where the player goes out into the field to fight guardians, platforming, finding different objects, solving puzzles, fight bosses, enemies, minigames, and basic discovery quests, similar to what Sonic Frontiers already presents, as well as moments of the characters just talking to each other, just to fluff up the game more. But I wanted to only focus on story beats, so all of the side stuff and specific dialogue that would have been said was just not talked about. I feel like I've created a good enough space that you can just kind of imagine what things could be added in on your own. Finding out something to do with Amy was actually pretty complicated. She's much better as a character doing her own thing, so she does have to be forced into the plot. I ultimately made her the anchor for Sonic's memories and a mediator for the party. Since Amy and Sonic are a duo package, as Sonic progresses, Amy does too. So remaining the one person Sonic remembers who can keep his mind focused on the goal, even as he continues to forget more and more things, just made a lot of sense. If you didn't notice, I actually kept the cast together by stealing two systems. I incorporated the follower system found in games like 06 and Shadow the Hedgehog, and I added in the comm system from Sonic Forces. So the player is constantly in touch with everybody throughout the game while playing levels or traveling through the field. You could even imagine that Sonic could report his findings back to base after completing objectives in the open zone through the comm system. Throughout writing, I made sure to imagine how it would transition into a game as I wrote, so that I didn't go overboard with what could reasonably be made. Like the city that Sonic and friends keep coming back to, I stole ideas from games like Sonic 06, Adventure, and Unleashed. So the puzzles are still there, as well as the freedom to run around and platform for fun. And for the open zones, I mixed what Frontiers already had, which would act as a separate place that would need to be loaded into, to not bog up the game with too much unnecessary detail, while making the actual levels just that. They're actual levels that are also loaded separately, as well as the boss areas are. Personally, I would focus more on mixing the combat with the platforming, like they do in the open zones of Frontiers, but if you prefer the more streamlined level, that's fine too. Eggman's transition to working with Sonic was a near impossible task. Working toward incorporating cyber corruption into the plot did help out a lot though, since Eggman had no way to upload himself into the server without being seen as just a virus. Plus, his initial reason for tampering with cyberspace was to get the Ancients' information. Mix that with Sage constantly hounding him to get out, giving him no sanctuary, and his empire slowly being deleted over time, I basically made it so that Eggman understood he had no choice, even if he didn't show it, and he had a direct way to get the information he needed without forcing it as well. The revelation being that Sage has actually been the end the whole time. I think this would be pretty easy to guess if the player paid attention, but it's good for the simplicity of the story. This immediately puts the end as a red herring. She's an aggressor for those the player is protecting. This develops the end as a tangible threat throughout the game until the reveal. Making the end actually the good guy in the story came about halfway through, when I realized that making the origin of the emeralds come from her would probably hit harder if the twist was that the Ancients never deserved the emeralds in the first place, similar to the Echidna, who fought over the emeralds and ended up abusing them, to the point that chaos appeared. It's a sort of poetic justice that comes full circle, with Chaos being the redeemer for the Ancients as much as Knuckles is revealed to be the redeemer for the Echidna. I like the idea of the Ancients using everyone's knowledge of how cyberspace works to take advantages of these new people from a modern world, granting the Ancients even more knowledge than they had before about the world of today, which ultimately led to them trying to force Amy into going Super Amy and using her power against Sonic. I wanted to try to stick to a believable Sega game, so I wasn't actually able to make Amy go super, because apparently only boy hedgehogs can do that. If I were to allow Amy to go super like Sonic, I definitely would have given her more of a prominent role in the game, because I would have made that a development of her character. Even one of my original ideas was to explore a few questions on why hedgehogs can even go super at all. But because Sega decided to be sexist, I didn't want to explore an avenue that could easily be dismissed as fan fiction for wanting Amy to become super, even though she should be able to, so I opted to do the cyber-corrupted Super Sonic instead. It's easy to just say the Chaos Emerald saves Sonic from cyber corruption, but it isn't earned if they could have accessed them the entire time and just didn't know it. So by making Sage have to physically access the Master Emerald herself made everything so much easier. Even if Sonic did find out that the Master Emerald existed, he had no way of knowing it held the data to the actual server. Add that with the fact that the Chaos Emeralds were actually attacking them with more cyber corruption, because the Chaos Emeralds aren't the server just in addition to it. Unless somebody told them to, they wouldn't try to just keep touching the Master Emerald, hoping that something would happen, and wouldn't know that it had access to every code in cyberspace. After I decided to put the Master Emerald in cyberspace, it became obvious that I couldn't let it just be tampered with by anybody aside from Sage and Knuckles. Giving the end the origin of creating the emeralds made it so that only her and the Echidna, who would go on to absorb her chaos energy through the Ancients' radiation, the only ones that could physically interact with the Master Emerald, while everybody else has to use machines. Ultimately, keeping to the confines of the story was a little challenging. I wanted to make sure that I hit the same plot beats, but in an entirely different way. There are plenty of things that I would change about Frontiers if I were just going into the story with no restrictions, but I chose to stick with what Sega provided to get my point across completely, and it still kept everything neatly put together in the end, so it worked out. Thank you all so much for watching, and an even bigger thank you for making it through the whole video. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and subscribe to my channel for more Sonic content. Leave a like and comment below about what you think. My name is KotyTang, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.